Hi, I'm your host, Marsha Florence for Just Ask. Today our show is Goldie's Fun. Hurry back and join us. Hi, I'm your host, Marsha Florence for Just Ask. Today our show is Goldie's Fun, and we have the founder himself, George Haradas. Hi, George.
Hello.
Glad to have you here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Okay. Now, George, this is unique for us because I know it's about a foundation that you have, and it's in reference to a personal situation that took place in your life. So can you give us some information on what is Goldie's Fun and how you became involved?
Yes. I created Goldie's Fun in memory of my mother, Goldie. And my mother had many ailments all of her life, and she passed at 60. And the last several years of her life, she had colon cancer. And being that she had colon cancer, she had to have a colostomy. And I had spent quite a bit of time trying to research my mother's ailments that she had and try to give something back to the community that would help those less fortunate. So after a few years of research, I realized that ostomy supplies, there was a lot of needed temporary help until people got on Medicaid. Okay. So I started the first charity in the country that provides ostomy supplies to the poor until they get on Medicaid.
Okay. Now, what is ostomy?
An ostomy surgery results in the removal or the bypass of the normal channel that body waste is discarded from the body. Okay. So people who have an ostomy usually have to depend on a pouching system, and the supplies are very expensive.
Okay, so once a person has the removal of the waste system, they're now relying on the bag.
Exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
And a lot of people don't understand now, so if you have colon cancer, it doesn't mean you would end up with the bag, but more or less.
That's true.
Okay.
Different ailments, you would need an ostomy for different ailments, such as colon cancer, a severe case, bladder cancer, Crohn's disease, colitis, diverticulitis. There are even infants we've helped from birth defects. There have also been people injured in a car accident who ended up having ostomy surgery.
Okay.
So there are different types of people who would need an ostomy.
So the ostomy surgery itself is the removal of?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And the ostomy supplies are very expensive. People have to, a lot of times people have a prolonged illness when they have their ostomy, and a lot of times they lose their job or they can't go back to the same job. So there's a waiting period where they can finally be well enough to start a new job and wait for their insurance to kick in, or those who are on Medicaid. I remember one of my mother's nurses who specialized in ostomy care had mentioned to me once that a lot of her patients have to choose between groceries and ostomy supplies.
Wow.
Which I find is unacceptable, especially in this country.
Okay. Now when you say ostomy supplies, what does supplies consist of?
Well, if you were to inventory all of the ostomy supplies that are available, there are about 35,000 pieces. Because everyone's built different, everyone needs different things. So, you know, there can be the apparatus that applies to the skin as well as the pouch attached to it, and that can run about $10, $15. Okay. Then all the other things that are needed to apply it so that it stays on the person's skin can add up to about $20. And then you figure that has to be changed maybe every 3 to 5 days. So this is why Goldie's Fun was so much needed. The medical community felt it was long overdue and very much needed.
Okay. So when a person has a operations as such, and then they end up having to purchase these items, then they can run into a lot of money by weeks, days, months, or
both.
Okay.
Because a lot of times after a person has their surgery, what might have worked right after their surgery as their scarring changes and swelling, they may have to change the whole type of pouching system. So a lot of times it can take people several weeks before they feel comfortable to even leave their home.
Okay, because I'm sure there's got to be some emotional drawbacks in there too.
Certainly.
And definitely counseling would be needed for a person to overcome the fact that, well, they don't feel that they can function anymore outside in the general public without being concerned if their waste matter is being exposed or something.
There's a body image change. It changes your whole lifestyle. People are concerned with spillage maybe or odor.
Okay.
So there's a lot of change there, and I felt that maybe trying to relieve some of the financial burden would help.
Okay, well, that's a wonderful thing. Well, I tell you what, George, we're going to take a commercial break, and we're going to come back with some more information about Goldie's Fund. We'll be right back.
How do you convince a 14-year-old girl that hair doesn't matter? When the diagnosis is childhood cancer, CureSearch.org can help. You're not as alone as you feel.
My nerves stand on end. My palms sweat. And everything's a blur. The rush is so intense. All I want to do is get even higher.
Andrea Moretti is under the influence of her local teen center volunteer. Each month, she helps Andrea stay on top of the world and off drugs. Be a coach, a mentor, a volunteer, because you have something to offer.
And welcome back to the show. For those of you who are just now joining us, we have George Heradas, the founder of Goldie's Fund. Now, George, I know that this is a fundraiser more or less, but the history of, is it ostomy? Okay. A lot of people think that when they know a person to have such a surgery, that they're in a wheelchair or that they're homebound and things of that nature. What do you say to family members who are caring for relatives with this condition?
You know, an ostomy definitely is an adjustment to the patient and the caregiver, but it's not a death sentence. It saved their life, and they can go on with their life. Once they're adapted and they're adjusted, everyone can go on with a normal life.
Okay.
We had cared for our mother in the home, and we all got involved in her care. And we're European background, and there was never a question as to whether we would be involved in her care. So we took care of her until she passed away.
Okay.
And you know, you have to be a strong family. You have to all understand each other. There's going to be good and bad days. Some days the patient's not going to want to see you. So you have to have a sense of humor as well.
Okay. Now, you have a nice-sized family, I'm sure. So being a son of a mother who's ill like this, how did it affect you? Did you balance your days out where you knew that you were doing the best that you could?
It was very difficult. I had to make some changes at work, and nearing the end, I just took a leave. And it was one of the hardest things we've ever done.
Okay.
It was difficult.
But it makes you appreciate the fact that modern medicine has done its best and, allows you to bring your mom home and take care of her from that point. Is that okay?
We would do it all. We would do it again.
Yep.
Certainly.
Okay, that's wonderful. So let me ask you this now. The people that benefit from Goldie's Fund, how do they find out about you?
Most all of the hospitals know who we are, and any ostomy department in a hospital have what's called ET nurses. They're enterostoma nurses. And the nurses know the patient's insurance and background. It's kind of a great way for Goldie's Fund because people are pre-screened already.
Okay.
So the ET nurse will, or maybe the discharge planner or the hospital social worker will get in touch with Goldie's Fund. And then we in turn purchase the supplies for the patient and deliver it.
Okay. All right, that sounds nice. So, okay, so you guys are registered with the hospitals. Okay. Do you meet the patients personally or?
No, we don't.
Okay.
No.
Okay, but you do have some background information on them so you know what supplies to send them.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
okay. Well, so you're a nonprofit?
Correct.
Okay, well then we know you have a phone number.
We sure do.
Okay, and that is?
888-581-5552. It's toll free.
Okay, 888
581-5552.
Okay, we'll make sure we air that number. Okay, so now now you just said a person doesn't necessarily have to have cancer to utilize some of these items.
Correct.
Wheelchair users use some of these same items, don't they?
Some do, sure.
Okay, all right. Okay, now normally the changing of the bag and everything, that's a portable bag that you dispose of, or
Yes.
that you just clean and replace, or what do you do?
Mostly you dispose of the outer bag every day.
Okay.
But the appliance that stays on the skin probably about 3 to 5 days.
Okay.
According to the United Ostomy Association, there are currently about 500,000 Americans who live with an ostomy. And they say that there's about 120,000 ostomy surgeries done every year.
Wow, okay.
So it's kind of a quiet subject.
Right. I
because of-
actually had a coworker that went through the same surgery, and the lady was well-to-do, dressed beautifully and everything, you know, and she would just mention it every now and then that, you know, oh, let me go to the ladies' room and, you know, clean myself up. And I'm like, okay. Not thinking anything, but she actually told the situation, and she said she felt much better knowing that she had been educated properly on how to care for herself so she could be more independent.
This is one of the reasons why I thank you so much for having me on this show, is because people don't find this a very appealing subject. And a lot of media have not helped out with Goldie's Fund, which, you know, I don't understand, because they just feel it's an unappealing subject. And which motivates me even more to educate our society about people with an ostomy and their needs.
Well, we here at Just Ask try to open the eyes of our public, so that's why it's called Just Ask, because there's no subject, you know, when it comes to health-related issues that we should not be able to talk about and give our, you know, support in. For a simple reason, everybody's not knowledgeable in the medical field of what's going on in their lives or their family lives, and the emotional stress behind it. So if you're the person who has the ailment, that's stressful enough for you, and then you have family members who are watching you, it's stressful on them too. So there's a lot of organizations that should come together under one. I mean, the bereavement counseling, the social workers divisions, you know, the medical people, the suppliers, all these people sooner or later become friends of yours or somehow, you know, or another, regardless if you get to meet them for a long period of time or a short period of time.
When you have someone ill in the home, you meet a lot of wonderful people. You meet a lot of wonderful people in the medical community who help you. And people are kind in general and willing to help. Because of that, I always knew I wanted to give something back. And I found that this is the way.
Okay. Now, what about children? Do you find that children have the ailments that will put them in a position to have?
We've helped several children, and we just helped a 10-year-old.
Okay.
Not so much that. Sometimes it's birth defect. Some are cancer.
Okay, okay. And I'm sure our audience are shaking their head like, well, children? You know, people always associate some conditions with age, you know, but...
They even have a camp for children with an ostomy to go to for a week every summer.
Okay.
Just so they can meet other children like themselves.
Okay, all right. Well, that should be an interesting camp. Okay. Now, I do have a flyer of yours here, or a brochure rather, the Goldie Horatius Memorial Ostomy Care Fund. Okay. So now, this is an annual fund, so...
What we do is every October we have a fundraiser. And this October 14th will be our 4th annual fundraiser. And it's a lot of fun, Marcia. It's $60 to go to, and you have a strolling buffet, there's cash bar, we have a silent auction, we have a live auction, we have a DJ, we have, no one can touch our dessert table.
Okay, okay, okay.
I have background in the restaurant business, and I know a lot of pastry chefs, so our desserts are wonderful. Okay. We even bring a little bit of our culture into it, and we have a Greek/American band, and we even have Greek dancing lessons. Okay. So it's a really fun night.
All right, so this is the 4th annual.
4th annual.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, that means that these guys are up and running, have been up and running, and need your support. Okay, so I noticed in this brochure you said who was Goldie Horatius, which is your mom, okay, and the fund, what it means, And what is ostomy? Okay, that's good. Okay, and the facts, some of the facts. Now, dealing with the facts is important because you know what? People are, like I said, under assumption that it happens in one household, may not happen in another, or all of a sudden, I heard about that, I didn't know that, you know, that was consistent. Now, because this condition here, since you said there's different variations of diseases or medical situations that could take place, there is no particular culture or population that can receive this service.
Exactly. We will help anyone who needs it.
Okay.
You know, and also, you know, you brought up a good point where a lot of people didn't know what ostomy was. Friends of mine didn't know until I started this. Colleagues at work didn't know. So I feel good that we're getting the word out there.
Okay, okay. Well, you know what, one thing about it is that when we become knowledgeable in certain areas, or all areas really, you do find out more and more other people who have been through the experience and also who have stories to exchange. Have you been visiting different organizations or people who've had this condition and decided, you know, we need to have a core group? Is there a support group or such a thing?
Well, the United Ostomy Association of the country is the only one I know of, and they have support groups throughout the different states.
Okay.
And then, for example, the largest one here is in a particular county nearby, and these are support groups. The unfortunate part of this is that they are in need of funding as well. You know, anything ostomy related doesn't get the attention and a lot of the support that it should. So, you know, there's talk that they might not even be around anymore. Well, if that's the case, I may even see what I could maybe arrange and take Goldie's Fund maybe a step further to help people in that way as well, not just with their supplies, but, you know, emotionally as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what, that's one of the reasons I asked, because people need a support group in all phases, so it doesn't matter, you know, what level it's on, if it's knowledgeable in the condition itself, if it's knowledgeable in where supplies are, or if it's knowledgeable in knowing family members who have went through the process and letting someone know if you need a break, this organization here can come in and be with your loved one until you come back off of vacation or a few days hiatus or whatever. And a lot of stuff is needed like that.
Right.
Okay.
You know, and another thing about Goldie's Fund is 92% of everything, every penny we get goes to ostomy supplies.
Okay.
We have no one's getting paid. No one's getting rich at Goldie's Fund. We all work and we do Goldie's Fund. And if you come to the fundraiser, Marcia, you'll see one of the most wonderful volunteers that you'll ever see. It truly is a labor of love. And all those people come because they care and they work hard.
Okay, I'm going to keep that in mind. Now, what's that phone number again? Do you need any volunteers or anything?
We're always looking for volunteers. We're always looking for items for our auction. And just come and have a great time.
Okay.
We need host committee people to sell tickets.
Okay.
Anything, pretty much everyone that helps kind of does their own expertise. They bring their own expertise to the table.
Okay. So give out that phone number again in case someone wants to call you.
Toll-free 888-581-5552.
Okay. Okay, that's a wonderful thing. So I'm tell you what, George, now we're going to take a commercial break because I know that we want to get some more information from you in reference to what it is, you know, the Goldie Fund's got coming up, and we'll be right back.
Excuse me, I've been getting mixed messages about women and violence. I need a little clarification.
Uncle Bill, how am I supposed to grow up to respect women when I have such lousy role models?
Boys are never going to approach you.
Can you help me reshape my attitudes towards women?
You need to teach them that violence against women is wrong.
And welcome back from Goldie's Fund. I'm sorry, to Goldie's Fund with George Sharadas. Now, George, you know what? I tell you this has been very insightful today, learning more about the medical people and ostomy, because it's even something I'm not even, you know, clear on, but I am familiar now with you telling me, and I appreciate the knowledge that you're giving me as well as our viewing audience about ostomy. So let me ask you just one quick question. How many people have you helped more so or less in the last couple of years or so?
We're almost at 260.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're getting some notoriety.
Wonderful.
People are learning about us.
Wonderful. What about the medical division? Is Medicare doing anything? Are they helping at all?
Medicaid does pay for ostomy supplies.
Okay, Medicaid, okay.
We're kind of the go-between from when a person has their surgery till they get on Medicaid.
Wonderful.
We cushion that period, and that could be anywhere from, it could be on the average of 3 months. Could be even up to 6.
Okay, okay. Well, that's good, because that's what I'm thinking. You know, you guys are around and people don't know who you are, and more or less, if you know, after the show and they find out who you are, what if they don't have any medical coverage? This particular.
This is where we come in.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Okay. Now, you gave out a phone number. Do you have a website?
We sure do.
Somebody need to look you up?
We sure do.
Okay.
It's www.goldiesfund.org.
Okay.
And on the website is some information about what it is. There's an area where you can look at pictures of our fundraisers to see how much fun they are as well.
Okay, all right. So do you have testimonial people who come and, you know, write your letters and everything and tell you what a wonderful job you're doing?
Yeah, that's when you know you're doing something right. We're starting to get a big photo album of thank you letters. We had a few patients that we've helped want to come and say a few words at the fundraiser. And when they're through, there's not a dry eye.
I can imagine.
We've taken some of those thank you letters and blew them up, and they're all around the room at the hall for people to read.
Okay.
So that's been rewarding, very rewarding.
And you know, I honestly tell you that in the 9 years that we've been here, just as it's been around for 9 years, we've learned a lot. I mean, the crew and I are educated by people like yourselves, okay? And that helps us understand better what we are doing is not taken for granted, you know, that we are doing something that's noteworthy. Because we get letters from our viewers, emails, fax, phone calls, and it's just enlightening to know that someone is learning and benefiting from a show such as this with knowledgeable information such as people like yourself.
Most definitely. Most definitely.
Okay. Well, we look forward to having you back, okay, especially following the fundraiser, and you never know, I might pop through the door. Okay.
That would be great.
Okay, now when someone calls you or goes on the website, can they get one of these in the mail? Can they get a brochure
Sure can.
in the mail?
You can email us from the website or call the toll-free number, and we'll respond quite quickly.
Okay, okay. Let me ask you, on your website, is there any information about ostomy on there where they can learn more about it if they're curious?
Sure is.
You know, because you know, you might go to Google's or Ask Jeeves and do some history, but do you have a page on your website yourself that somebody can actually understand what it is that they're reading?
And we have some very helpful links as to the different companies that make the supplies. So it can even help you shop for supplies as well.
Okay. Now with supplies, we're not just talking about the bags. Give me an idea of what are some of the supplies people get.
Well, there are sprays for the skin for irritation purposes. There's the glue to put what they call a wafer onto the skin. There's the pouch itself. There's different clips. There's deodorizers. There's just a lot of different things. There's belts. Some come with belts for people who have a problem keeping a secure seal. So there's so many different kinds.
Wow. Okay.
And some people can maybe use 2 to 3 items. Some people have to use 7 or 8. You know, it's trial and error.
Okay, so a lot of people probably don't even know that. You know, that's unique in itself, knowing that there's a spray, there's a glue, there's a clip, there's a belt, and there's all kinds of devices.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I tell you, you educated us here today, and we really do appreciate that. And you know, I'm sorry you had to go through the learning steps yourself to figure it out, but you are a pioneer in yourself in helping out others as well as keeping your
great
mother.
Volunteers as well.
Yeah, well,
so.
yeah, you will. I tell you what, I know your mom's proud of you, okay? You're keeping her dream alive, and that's a wonderful thing.
It's something she would have started.
Okay.
You know, we were taught there's nothing we can't do. You
That's
know,
wonderful.
and we were taught to be giving and be generous and work hard, and we're just carrying that on.
Okay, well, you're doing all that. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, you know, do tune into this segment and learn more about ostomy, and check out George Herodotus' website at
www.goldiesfund.org.
Okay, all right, and the phone number again?
888-581-5552.
Okay, so we're going to give out that phone number and definitely highlight that website so that you can become knowledgeable in learning more about ostomy, because you never know, it could be someone close to you. It doesn't have to be a family member, but it could be a friend. You want to know. So thank you, George.
And thank you for having me.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to our community news segment with our community news segment leader today, Sue Fabian.
Thank you, Marcia. Sue Fabian, elder law attorney, here to talk to you about how to choose a home care agency so that you don't end up with a bad apple in your home. Of course, you ask the basic questions of the home care agency. How long have you been in service? Do you do criminal background checks on your employees? Do you do driver's license checks and drug screens? But you have to go beyond the basics. For instance, you want to inquire how the home care agency screens its applicants. Some home care agencies will reject all applicants with any criminal convictions, and some allow certain convictions to come in if they're unrelated to theft and dishonesty. You ought to ask what the screening practices are of the home care agency. You also want to know if the agency has a protocol for suspected theft and abuse. What do they do? And are any employees currently under investigation? As to criminal background checks, you want to know if they do a national or at least a state level criminal background check. Some employment agencies only go to the local police. If the applicant has a criminal conviction outside of the city boundaries, the local police department won't pick it up. If this happens, you might want to ask the employee for consent to do a state background check with the state police or with the FBI on a national basis. You also want to know what the policy is of the home care agency for no-shows. If you are a working individual taking care of a loved one with a disability or an older adult, you want to know that your home care worker is going to show up. What is the agency protocol for someone who calls in and does not show? You need to know that for your own peace of mind. Finally, you should always check the agency's protocol on checking the signature of the client who is being served. What do I mean by that? Well, in one instance, a home care worker was forging the older adult's name on her worksheets. The older adult had to sign off on the worksheet to say that her worker had done this work on this particular date. Well, the home care worker was forging the signature. In this case, the home care worker was fired for theft, stealing the blank checks of the older adult and forging them. I hope these tips help to keep the good eggs in your home and the bad apples out. Marcia?
If you have any questions for Sue Fabian, please feel free to contact her on our website at justasktalkshow.org. Also, if you know who I am, I'm your host, Marcia Florence with Just Ask. What do I always say? If you have a question about a person with a disability or a general question, don't be afraid to ask. Just Ask. I'm your host, Marcia Florence. Thank you.